Once upon a time, I was a raging bitch. Now, why would I call myself that in front of all of you? Well, here's how it went down. I asked my 33-year-old daughter which of two titles she preferred for this speech, Bitch on Wheels or Hell on Heels. She looked at me and said, "But Mom, you are a raging." And I said, "Well, do I have to say that?" She said, "Well, it was true." And it was true. So we're going with that because it was true. Now, at the time, I had a reason, at least I'd like to think I did. I was the risk manager for a large bank, and I wore the suit well. I had the pumps, the pantyhose, the shoulder pads. More importantly, though, I had an eye for trouble, and I saw it everywhere I went. That's fine for bank deals. Not so good in your life. Not so good when you do it everywhere you go. And what I discovered is if I saw trouble and acted on it, I would get consequences, and they weren't all that pleasant. And about the time I was realizing, this isn't working. I don't like these consequences. I was the team lead for a team at the bank, and we decided to do a session on core values. What we're going to uphold together, like honesty and integrity. This team wanted to assume positive intent as a core value. And I hated it. Because, I said to them, "Do y'all know what happens when you assume? You make an ass out of you and me?" Ass, you, me. I was like, no, I don't want to do any of that. I also really wanted the core value that went something like this. Remember my previous title. Let's just everybody do what I say. However, we left that meeting agreeing to try to do, and I'm using the operative word try, assume positive intent. Now, when I left that meeting, I had no idea how to do it. And I had no idea how, when I did learn to do it, I would become the co-writer of an entirely new story for my life. So here's what I did learn. I was assuming a lot. I was assuming negative intent. And I was doing it everywhere. If I went to the store, I'm waiting for the clerk to take advantage of me. I would be traveling and waiting for somebody to get in my way. At work, I was waiting for everybody to make me look bad. And my friends and family, well, I had about 100 ways that I was looking for negative intent. And I'm pretty sure when I was doing that, I was making an ass out of me. Now, when I looked at it a little deeper, I began to realize that I had reasons I was doing that. It was a self-protective mechanism for just about anything that worried me. It was as if I see the trouble coming, it can't get me. And if I get them first, it really can't get me. I did it to be safe. But it wasn't safe. What I did eventually learn was, when I assume positive intent, it's actually safer, and it's actually fairly simple. It's just not easy. What I learned is if you change the story, you can change the outcome. Now, here's where it all came together. I was in the Denver airport, and this was back in the day when they had something called the Expert Traveler line. So I pull up and I see that sign and I said, Expert Traveler, that's me. I'm going there. And I expected every single person in that line to be a business person like me. So you can imagine how upset I was when I got to the front of the line, and who's in front of me but a mother and a child and a stroller and a bunch of extra bags. All I could see was complexity and trouble. And this is what started happening. I could feel the rage starting to build. And these nonsense thoughts started. What is she doing in this line? Does she know she doesn't belong in this line? Did she see the sign? Did she read the sign and think that she's an expert traveler? Excuse me, authorities, can we get somebody over here? I was so close to intervening. Then she did something, though, that snapped me out of it. She put her child on the floor to manage her bags. And all of a sudden, I didn't see an obstacle anymore. I saw somebody who needed help. And I started to pick up the child, and I thought, might get arrested for that. So I just went to help her with her bags. And I said, here, let me help you. And I was sincerely helping her. And it was very interesting because helping her, I created a shift inside of myself Rage was completely gone. Trouble was completely gone. And all I saw was a woman that needed help getting through the airport. She just got up in the morning hoping to make it through the line just like I did. She was not there to be in my way. More interestingly, though, it didn't just last for that moment. For the rest of that trip, when I turned in my money for lunch, when I turned in my boarding pass, when I sat down next to the dreaded middle seatmate, I was much different. I was like seeing fellow travelers instead of obstacles, or seeing fellow travelers instead of somebody that might like flop their laptop down in my lap or something. It was really different. And I was very grateful that she had snapped me out of it. Now, when I think back to what had happened before, so many times, what could have happened and had happened, she puts her child on the floor. And this is what I would have done. Now, just a damn minute. Somebody get her out of my way. Wait a minute. What's wrong with these strawberries? What do you mean you turned in a report without me? And you can imagine the consequences I would get in my life when I acted like that. Now, I'm not going to tell you it never happens, but it happens much less since I've learned to assume positive intent by changing that story and changing the outcome. So today I am an executive coach. I work with senior executives and athletes on high performance, on mental toughness, on taking their game to the next level. Assume positive intent may be the most common idea that we work with. And you may ask, for example, think about athletics. It's competition. Where's the positive intent there, right? Well, think of this example. You've got an athlete, he's about to compete, and his competitor starts trying to get to him. You know, that little get under the skin stuff. Hey, did you see? Did you look out there? Did you see the conditions? Did you see so-and-so fell? Did you see what your girlfriend did at the bar last night? Just trying to get to that guy, right? Now, a mentally strong athlete is not going to let that get to him. A mentally strong athlete is going to go, wow, okay, I must be getting to him. He must be worried about me. I must be ready to go. Now, the thing is, though, you may be asking, okay, so yeah, assume positive intent. That's great when positive intent is there. What am I supposed to do when somebody means negative intent? How many of you were thinking, wait a minute, sometimes people really do mean negative intent, right? So let me tell you a situation that took this idea to a completely different level for me. Because in this particular situation, what I saw is that assuming positive intent can actually transform negative intent into positive intent. Here's what happened. I was facilitating a meeting for a team that I'd worked with for a very long time. And going into the meeting, I had this question, and this is important. It was in the back of my mind. You know, since I've worked with this team for a long time, I wonder when they're going to be ready for a different facilitator. As I was setting up the meeting, this is how we're going to do it. This is what we're going to go over today. This is how we're going to, run the meeting. Joe, one of the guys in the room who I considered like my buddy, does this. He slaps his hand on the table and he goes, "Can we just do something different?" And it hit me right in that question. It hit me in the gut. I was like, oh no. And my first temptation was to fight him. I wanted to explain to him why he was wrong, defend myself, whatever. However, I had been working with this team about positive intent, so I thought I better not do that. So I gave myself a couple of minutes to recover. I probably did put my hand over my mouth just to make me not talk until I could find the positive intent. And then I came back to the team with this. What is it going to take for you all as a team to have a different conversation, just like Joe just said? And there was a complete shift in the room. First of all, for the rest of the day, Joe engaged beautifully. He was very much involved, but so was the rest of the team. And they went deeper and addressed issues that they hadn't been willing to address before. Now, I think back, I could have very much, if I had fought him, we would have gone down a different rabbit trail. But instead, they left the day much more prepared to do the work that they were there to do together. Now, at dinner, I thanked Joe. I said, "Thank you for that question." And he gave me a really funny look. And I never knew why until several years later. He was my coaching client. Assume positive intent was an idea that I thought would be good for him. So I started to tell him about assuming positive intent, and I started to tell him this story because it's one of my favorite stories. And then I realized I was about to tell Joe the story about Joe. So I said, oh, Joe, this story is about you. I'm going to finish it because I have a question for you. I've always had this question for you. So we finished the story, and I said, so can you tell me what you meant that day when you said, can we just do something different? And he said, oh, I was coming after you with both barrels. I was sick of you. I was sick of your facilitation. I was sick of your questions. I said, okay, so he did mean negative intent, right? And I said, so what did you think when I turned it? And he said, you know what? I was relieved because I didn't have to be the jerk that day. Now, let's think about what happened there. There was more than one thing going on. He did provide me a big old pile of negative intent, right? That's what was there, and I could have reacted to that. But when I took a minute, I could also see barely, like one tiny little grain of positive intent in there. Over here, he's the antagonistic teammate. Over here, he's the caring teammate. And that's what I touched. And that's what we got more of. That's what I've learned about assuming positive intent. You're going to get more of what you touch. That's how assuming positive intent can actually change negative intent into positive intent. So here's the question for you. What would your life look like if you began to assume positive intent, even if you're not sure somebody means positive intent? Is it even possible? Here's a few things I wish I'd known coming out of that meeting so many years ago. Just a few hints. First of all, it helps to see that you have a choice. You got to see that you don't have to react. You can respond. And it's different. So you just see the choice. And then it's useful, once you see that choice, to just take a breath. Take a pause. And in that pause, make up a better story. Make up a different story that doesn't make the other person a villain and you a victim. Make up the story that finds that tiny little grain of positive in there. And then act on that. Because when you act on that, chances are the positive intent that you are assuming will actually become positive intent. And you might just become the co-writer of an entirely new story for your life. Thank you.